What God wanted at Mount Sinai is for the Torah to become our nature. And that's why the word commandment is so misleading. A commandment means you have no say on the matter. This is your commandment, you do what you're told. This is not what we're reading here. So calling it the Ten Commandments is a little not Jewish. The intention here was that the people and God would be merged through the mitzvahs and not remain strangers to each other. In fact, when the people said, we want to see God, God's answer was, as we read later on, God's answer was, that's very nice, but no. And the people heard. So what God was saying was, I don't want you to see me, I want you to hear me. What does that mean? To see God is, again, unilateral, because seeing is passive. You see what there is, and that's what there is. This is not interpersonal. Seeing is not personal. And that's why seeing is believing, because you're seeing what is, and you have no input. Your eyes don't influence what you're seeing. You've seen it, that's what it is. Now you know. So seeing has the virtue of being objectively real. You saw it. Hearing is a little more interpersonal. I hear what you're saying. Not just the vibrations. I hear the meaning. I hear what you're trying to tell me. So hearing involves me much more than seeing. And that's why intimacy does not involve seeing. In fact, seeing is pornography. It's impersonal. That's the idea of modesty. Modesty means if you want me, you got to hear me. Seeing me is not acceptable. Because seeing is impersonal and the relationship has to be interpersonal. So here for the first time in history, God is actually negotiating with the people. So the people said, if you ask me, we would like to hear from you directly. In fact, we'd like to see you. And God says, yeah, that's nice, but that's not the kind of relationship I want. If you see me, you'll be overwhelmed by who I am. That doesn't involve you. It almost cancels you. I don't want that. I want you to be engaged in this relationship, so hear me. This is a very important lesson in life in general. To hear is much more personal. And that's why people need to be heard, not seen. Not just children. Children need to be seen but not heard. People need to be heard much more than they need to be seen. Because then you know you've made contact. You can stare at somebody for the longest time and you have no idea who you're looking at. But if you hear somebody, you know who that person is. So God says, I want to be heard. I don't want to impress you. I want to connect with you. So on the one hand, God cooperates, there's a better word than that, and says, okay, you want to hear me directly? Fine. There's a give and take here. There's not... And that's why Moshe is running back and forth between the people and God. Why was that necessary? Again, because through Moshe, we were able to hear him. When he spoke directly, we were affected as if we had seen him. It overwhelmed. It didn't engage. It's very interesting that the commandments that overwhelmed them, they were able to violate 40 days later. Which shows that an overwhelming experience is very short-lived. It's intense at the moment, but it dissipates very quickly. Why? Because it didn't engage you. So it didn't affect you, it didn't change you. It overwhelmed you, which means you get nothing. When the dust settles, you have nothing. When it's an engaging relationship, when you hear, you don't get that excited. It's not that overwhelming. But on the other hand, it's you. You now heard. You've absorbed something. You have changed. So it turns out that between the first 2 commandments and the other 8 commandments, we had both experiences. The overwhelming one and the engaging one. And both are necessary. In the beginning, when you first start your journey in Judaism, it's overwhelming. This is it. These are the commandments. Take it or leave it. If you're excited and inspired to do the mitzvah, it's an overwhelming inspiration. Humbling. But that doesn't last. Then you have to learn, you have to get to know, to understand. So Rambam says, and the Rebbe quotes it in the calendar, the Hasidic calendar, he quotes it for the same day in which we read the 10 Commandments. And he says, the first mitzvah is not to believe in God. The first mitzvah is to get to know him. To get to know him. Belief in God means you're canceled. Just submit. This is not up to you. Nobody's asking you your opinion. God is God, and that's it. Which is true. But that's not how you create a relationship. If you want to connect with God, you have to get to know him or hear him. So the 10 Commandments, the event at Sinai, is literally a marriage. It's negotiated. We have a prenuptial. We have a ksuba. If you keep my commandments, you'll be whatever. So it's a negotiated relationship. And it is literally referred to in the Medrash as the day of our wedding.
Partner with Rabbi Friedman. Visit itsgoodtoknow.org/support.